Today we'll discuss how to change the belt tensioner on your vehicle. Now the belt tensioner is located under the hood on the front of the motor. It is, as you'll see here, a pulley with a spring inside that keeps tension on the belts to keep it from squeaking or jumping around. This vehicle just has one belt and it's located under the alternator. Now this is how you can tell that you'll probably need a new tensioner, is if your car is making a noise kind of like this. Now in this particular instance, it was squeaking because the tensioner was out of line with the rest of the belt. When you look down at the top of the belt, everything should be in a straight line. In this case, the tensioner was kind of stuck out to the side a little bit, so you could see the belt underneath, where it ran underneath, was sticking out to the side. Of course, there could be 1,000 different reasons why you need to change your belt tensioner and how to diagnose that. But if you get to that, now let's get into how to get down to that belt tensioner and change it out. First things first, disconnect the battery and put that negative battery cable off to the side where it's not touching. In this case, we have the alternator on top of that belt tensioner, so we're going to loosen up those alternator bolts and get it out of there. Now we're going to get those bolts loose down there. Sometimes they get a little stuck. They're a little hard to loosen up. So just old trick, put another wrench down on that first wrench on the open end and give it a good pry. So loosen that up, get all those bolts loose and out of there. In this case, there's a bracket on top of the alternator. Now that's keeping us from getting access to the bolt down on the back of the tensioner, so we'll remove that. To do so as well on that bracket, there's 2 bolts on the side, 1 on the top. It might vary depending on your vehicle, so just see what's keeping you from getting down to those tensioner bolts and remove it. Okay, finishing up here with the alternator, get that nut off the back. Pull that long bolt out, and then we're just going to tuck the alternator back out of the way so we can access that nut on the back of the tensioner down behind. On the back of that tensioner is a nut, so you'll have to remove that nut. It's just a gap where we took that bracket out. Now here's your new tensioner. Once you pull that old one out, just take the new tensioner and stuff it down there in place. It has a pin on the back, so it only lines up in one position to put the correct amount of tension on. So get it lined up and get that nut back on there. Everything goes back on in reverse order, so once you get that tensioner back in there, then you'll slide that bolt back into the alternator, get the alternator back in its position, and just reassemble in the same order that you disassembled. Same deal here, just tightening up all the nuts, put everything back in its place down to the torque, about what it came off at. So I'm not using a torque wrench here, just kind of torque to feel. Okay, here that bolt stiffened up, so I'm just using the wrench method again to tighten that back down. Nothing so I don't strip anything out, but just to get it secure again. Okay, here we're routing that belt around all of its corresponding pulleys in the correct order. There's probably a diagram under the hood. Get that all lined up. That way it goes on nice and easy when you press down that tensioner. Okay, to get that belt in place, just like you take it off, you put a wrench on the front of that tensioner, you pull it down to take the tension off of that, and you slide its belt onto all of its respective pulleys so it's all lined up. Okay, because the problem we had before was that the belt on the tensioner wasn't straight in the rest of the belt. I'm just double checking that here. And that new tensioner did the trick. As you can see, everything's nice and lined up. Now once everything's back in its place, connect that battery back up. And last but not least, crank her over. As you can see here, No more squeaking. And that's how you change a tensioner on a vehicle.